The Silent Watchers. The radio telescope at Arecibo had been listening to the cosmos for decades, but Dr. Sarah Chen had never heard anything quite like this. She sat in the darkened control room at 3 a.m., her coffee growing cold as she stared at the patterns dancing across her monitors. The signal was structured, definitely artificial, but unlike anything in their database. "Computer, run Analysis Protocol 7, she whispered, not wanting to wake her sleeping colleagues. The machine hummed quietly, processing the mysterious transmission that had been repeating every 12 hours for the past 3 days. Sarah had dedicated her life to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. While her friends settled into comfortable careers, she spent her nights scanning the stars, hoping to find proof that humanity wasn't alone. Most nights ended in disappointment, but tonight felt different. The analysis completed with a soft chime. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she read the results. The signal contained mathematical sequences, prime numbers, and what appeared to be star charts. This wasn't random cosmic noise or a pulsar. This was a message, and it was meant to be understood. Her hands trembled as she reached for the secure phone. "Director Harrison, I'm sorry to wake you, but you need to see this immediately." 12,000 miles above Earth, hidden within the shadow of an artificial asteroid, the Xilari observation station had monitored the planet for over 2 centuries. The graceful beings, with their crystalline skin that reflected light like precious gems, had watched humanity's evolution with growing fascination. Ambassador Kethra stood before the massive viewing screen, her translucent blue form shimmering as she observed the lights of human cities sprawling across the night side of Earth. Her elongated fingers traced patterns in the air, manipulating holographic displays that showed human technological progress, population growth, and most importantly, their capacity for both creation and destruction. "The human Dr. Chen has detected our communication attempts," reported science observer Velnas, his crystalline features pulsing with soft amber light. "Should we cease transmission?" Kethra considered this carefully. The Xilari had sworn never to interfere with developing species, but circumstances had changed dramatically. "No," she decided. "Continue the transmissions. Increase the mathematical complexity gradually. We need to know if they can decode our location coordinates." Ambassador Velnas hesitated, his colors shifting to nervous purple. "The Council of Observers still believes we should evacuate this system without contact. The Vorthak Empire is only months away from discovering Earth's location." The mention of the Vorthak Empire sent a chill through the observation chamber. The reptilian species had conquered 17 worlds in the past century, strip mining planets and enslaving or eliminating native populations. They were efficient, ruthless, and utterly without mercy for what they considered inferior species. "The Vorthak will find Earth whether we warn the humans or not," Kethra replied, her voice carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. "At least this way, the humans might have a chance to prepare." What the Xilari had observed about humanity both fascinated and disturbed them. Humans were the first species they'd encountered that seemed to possess 2 completely contradictory natures. They created beautiful art, showed incredible compassion for their fellow beings, and displayed remarkable ingenuity in solving problems. Yet they also possessed a capacity for organized violence that surpassed even the Vorthak in its sophistication. The Xilari, like most sentient species in the galaxy, had evolved as naturally peaceful beings. When faced with conflict, their instinct was to withdraw, negotiate, or flee. They had never developed weapons of war because they had never needed them. This philosophical difference had made them easy prey for the Vorthak war machine. "Run the simulation again," Kethra commanded. "Show me what happens when the Vorthak fleet encounters Earth's defenses." The holographic display shifted, showing a detailed analysis of Earth's current military capabilities. Primitive by galactic standards, but the Xilari computers had noted something that made the mathematical projections uncertain. Human warfare wasn't just about technology. It was about strategy, deception, and an almost incomprehensible willingness to fight against impossible odds. "The variables are too unpredictable," Velnas admitted. Human military doctrine appears to be based on principles our models cannot fully quantify. They seem to actively seek tactical disadvantages in order to test their adaptability. They call it training, Kethra murmured. They prepare for war even during peace. 3 days later, Sarah Chen stood before an emergency assembly of the world's leading scientists and government officials. The secure conference room beneath the United Nations building buzzed with tension as she presented her findings. The signal originates from a point approximately 12,000 miles above Earth, she explained, gesturing to the holographic display. The mathematical sequences progress in complexity, suggesting an intelligence that wants to establish communication gradually. President Elena Vasquez leaned forward, her weathered face showing the strain of recent sleepless nights. Dr. Chen, in your professional opinion, what are we dealing with? First contact, Madam President. We're being contacted by an extraterrestrial intelligence that has been observing us for an unknown period of time. The room erupted in worried murmurs. General Marcus Webb, a stern man with silver hair and calculating eyes, raised his hand for silence. The question isn't whether they're real. The question is what they want. As if summoned by his words, every communication device in the room suddenly activated. Screens flickered to life, displaying the same message in dozens of languages. People of Earth, we must speak. The transmission lasted exactly 60 seconds. When it ended, a new signal appeared on Sarah's instruments. These weren't mathematical sequences. These were coordinates, pinpointing a location in Earth's upper atmosphere. They want to meet, Sarah whispered. General Webb was already reaching for his secure phone. I'm scrambling fighter jets. This could be an invasion. General, wait, President Vasquez intervened. If they wanted to invade, would they announce themselves first? The debate continued for hours, but the decision was ultimately made by the aliens themselves. At precisely noon Eastern Standard Time, a ship appeared in the skies above New York City. It was beautiful rather than threatening, resembling a crystalline flower that caught and refracted sunlight into rainbow patterns across the Manhattan skyline. The ship settled gently onto the UN building's roof, and after several tense minutes, a portal opened. Ambassador Kethra emerged, her crystalline form causing gasps of wonder from the assembled crowd. She was humanoid but clearly alien, standing nearly 7 feet tall with skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. People of Earth, she spoke, her voice carrying a musical quality that seemed to resonate directly in their minds. I am Kethra of the Zilari Collective. We have watched your species for many years, and we come to you now with a warning that may save both our peoples. General Webb stepped forward, his hand resting on his sidearm. What kind of warning? Kethra gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the air between them. It showed a massive fleet of dark, angular ships moving through space like a swarm of mechanical insects. The Vorthak Empire, she explained. They have conquered 17 worlds in the past century. They destroy or enslave every intelligent species they encounter, strip mining planets for resources before moving on to the next system. Our long-range sensors indicate they will reach this solar system within 4 months. The humans stared at the display in horrified silence. The Vorthak ships numbered in the thousands, each one bristling with weapons that could level continents. President Vasquez found her voice first. What do you want from us? Nothing, Kethra replied, her crystalline features shifting to show what might have been sadness. We are a peaceful species. We have no weapons, no military, no concept of organized warfare. When the Vorthak reach our homeworld, we will be defenseless. We came to warn you because you, unlike us, might be able to fight. Fight that. General Webb gestured at the holographic fleet. Our most advanced weapons couldn't scratch those ships. Perhaps, Kethra acknowledged. But you have something the Vorthak have never encountered before. Every species they have conquered was peaceful, like us. They have never faced a species that understands warfare as instinctively as you do. She manipulated the display, showing images of human military history, ancient battles, modern conflicts, strategic innovations that had shaped the course of civilization. You are the first species we have observed that prepares for war during peace, she continued. You create strategies, contingencies, and backup plans. You adapt your tactics based on your enemy's weaknesses. The Vorthak succeed through overwhelming force because they have never needed to be clever. Sarah Chen stepped forward, her scientific mind racing. You're not just warning us. You're asking us to help you. I am offering you a choice, Kethrak corrected gently. The Vorthak will find your world whether you help us or not. But if you choose to fight, we can provide you with technology that might level the playing field. Our science is advanced, even if our military capabilities are not. The implications hung heavy in the air. Humanity's first contact with alien life was also potentially their last chance for survival. President Vasquez looked around the room, seeing her own thoughts reflected in the faces of world leaders and military officials. What exactly are you proposing? An alliance, Kethra replied. We provide technology and intelligence about the Vorthak. You provide something we lack: the knowledge of how to wage war. General Webb studied the holographic display, his strategic mind already analyzing the enemy fleet composition. How much time do we have? 4 months until they reach the outer planets. 6 months until they reach Earth. That's not enough time to build a proper defense, Webb muttered. It might be enough time to build an offense, President Vasquez said quietly. General, what would you need? Webb's eyes gleamed with the light of a career soldier facing the ultimate challenge. Global cooperation, unlimited resources, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. Over the next week, as news of the alien contact spread across the world, humanity began to change. Old enemies became allies as the reality of the external threat became clear. The world's greatest military minds gathered to study Zilari intelligence on the Vorthak Empire. What they learned was both encouraging and terrifying. The Vorthak were militarily superior but strategically predictable. They had conquered so many peaceful species that they had grown complacent, relying on brute force rather than tactical innovation. They're bullies, General Webb concluded during a strategy meeting. They've never had to fight an enemy that fought back effectively. Dr. Chen, now serving as the chief liaison with the Zilari, nodded thoughtfully. Kethra says the Vorthak consider warfare to be a simple matter of superior firepower. They don't understand concepts like feints, false retreats, or sacrificial tactics. Then we teach them, President Vasquez declared. We show them what happens when you threaten a species that has spent its entire evolutionary history learning how to fight. As the meeting ended and humanity began its most desperate preparation, none of them could imagine the impact their decision would have on the galaxy. The Vorthak Empire was about to encounter something it had never faced before, a species that didn't just fight to survive, but fought to win. The sleeping giant was awakening, and the universe was about to learn why humanity had survived every challenge their violent world had thrown at them. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous species in the galaxy is the one that fights not just for itself, but for others who cannot fight at all. In the depths of space, Vorthak long-range scouts were already detecting unusual activity in the solar system they had marked for conquest. Their reports described massive construction projects, energy signatures that didn't match their profiles of primitive human technology, and most puzzling of all, a complete change in communication patterns across the planet. Warlord Grix Thol, commander of the Vorthak Advance Fleet, dismissed these reports as insignificant. In his experience, primitive species often engaged in frantic, futile activity when they detected the approach of the Empire. It made no difference to the final outcome. He had no way of knowing that for the first time in the Vorthak Empire's history, they were not approaching prey. They were approaching predators who had just learned they were not alone in the universe. The hunt was about to begin. And this time, humanity would not be the prey. When Earth goes to war. The transformation of Earth began immediately after the alliance was forged. Within 72 hours of first contact, Every major nation had suspended their differences and pooled their resources into what became known as the Terra Defense Initiative. The scale of cooperation was unprecedented in human history, driven by the simple reality that extinction was the alternative. Admiral Jessica Torres stood on the bridge of the newly christened EDS Retribution, humanity's first interstellar warship. The vessel was a hybrid marvel of human engineering and Zilari technology, bristling with weapons that no single species could have created alone. The sleek Zilari hull design had been reinforced with human-designed armor plating, while the elegant alien propulsion systems powered weapons arrays that would have been impossible with either species' technology alone. "Admiral, fleet reports ready for departure," announced Captain Ryan O'Connor, her tactical officer and one of the finest strategic minds the military had ever produced. At 35, O'Connor had already revolutionized modern warfare doctrine, and now he was applying those same innovative principles to interstellar combat. "All vessels, this is Admiral Torres," she broadcast to the assembled fleet. "Today, humanity leaves Earth not as explorers or diplomats, but as warriors. We carry with us the hopes of two species and the responsibility to show the galaxy that there are some lines that cannot be crossed." The fleet consisted of 12 ships, each one a testament to humanity's ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. The Zilari had provided the foundation, but human engineers had weaponized every system, turning peaceful exploration vessels into instruments of war. Where the Zilari saw elegant curves designed for efficiency, humans saw firing angles and defensive positions. Engineer Lu Wei, the young genius who had overseen the technology integration, watched from the engineering deck as his creations came to life. The Zilari had been horrified when they saw what humans had done to their peaceful designs, but they couldn't argue with the effectiveness. "Kinetic barriers at full strength," Lu reported. "All weapons systems show green across the board. The railgun arrays are functioning beyond design specifications." The railguns were perhaps the most ingenious adaptation. The Zilari had developed magnetic field manipulators for mining operations, capable of moving massive objects with precision. Human military engineers had immediately seen their potential as weapons, creating projectile systems that could fire tungsten rods at significant fractions of light speed. "Zilari Command, this is Admiral Torres. We are ready to depart." Kethra's crystalline form shimmered on the communication screen. Over the past months, she had watched humanity transform from a peaceful species to a war machine with a mixture of awe and concern. "Admiral, our scouts report the Vorthak Advance Fleet has accelerated their timeline. They will reach the Zilari homeworld in 3 weeks. Then we'll be there in 2, Torres replied grimly. The journey to the Zilari system took 18 days, during which the human crews trained relentlessly. They ran combat simulations based on every piece of intelligence the Zilari had gathered about Vorthak tactics. What they discovered both encouraged and worried them. The Vorthak fight like they're still conquering Stone Age civilizations, O'Connor observed during a strategy briefing. Look at their formation patterns. They rely entirely on superior firepower and numbers. They've never had to develop complex tactics because they've never faced serious resistance. That's their weakness, agreed Major Sarah Kim, the fleet's Marine commander. They expect their enemies to break and run. They've never faced an enemy that fights back strategically. Lu Wai pulled up technical analyses of captured Vorthak weapons. Their technology is advanced but not innovative. Everything is designed for maximum destructive power with minimal subtlety. They don't use electronic warfare, stealth technology, or tactical deception. Because they've never needed to, Torres realized. Every species they've conquered has been peaceful. They're used to fighting farmers and scientists, not soldiers. As they approached the Zilari system, long-range sensors detected the Vorthak Advance Fleet. 27 massive ships, each one easily 5 times the size of the human vessels, arranged in a perfect geometric formation that prioritized firepower over maneuverability. Warlord Grix Thol commanded the Vorthak fleet from his flagship, a kilometer-long dreadnought bristling with plasma cannons. The reptilian commander stood 8 feet tall, his scaled hide scarred from countless battles against helpless prey. His yellow eyes studied the tactical display with contempt. The Zilari have somehow acquired 12 additional vessels, reported his intelligence officer, Sub-Commander Vexnell. Configuration unknown, but they appear to be significantly smaller than our ships. Grixthol's lipless mouth curved in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Desperate measures from a dying species. Prepare the standard conquest formation. We will destroy their pathetic fleet, then begin harvesting operations on their homeworld. The Vorthak had perfected conquest through overwhelming force. Their doctrine was simple: mass their superior firepower, advance in formation, and obliterate everything in their path. It had worked against 17 different species, and Grixthol saw no reason why it would fail now. "Admiral, we're being hailed by the Vorthak fleet," O'Connor reported from the Retribution's bridge. "Put them through," Torres ordered. Grixthol's reptilian features filled the main screen, his yellow eyes glowing with predatory confidence. "I am Warlord Grixthol of the Vorthak Empire. You will surrender immediately and prepare for processing. Resistance will only increase your suffering." Torres met his gaze steadily. "I am Admiral Jessica Torres of the Terran Defense Fleet. This is your only warning. Withdraw from this system immediately, or we will make you withdraw." The warlord's laughter was a harsh, grating sound. "Primitive species always make such bold claims. Your 12 vessels against my 27. Your weapons against our proven superiority. This will be over quickly." "You're right about one thing," Torres replied calmly. "This will be over quickly." The communication ended, and both fleets began maneuvering for battle. The Vorthak maintained their traditional formation, a wall of ships designed to bring maximum firepower to bear on their enemies. It was the same tactic that had conquered 17 worlds. The human fleet, however, did something the Vorthak had never encountered. They scattered. "All vessels, execute dispersal pattern Sierra 7. Torres commanded. "Begin electronic warfare protocols. Activate stealth systems." To Grixthol's amazement, the enemy fleet seemed to vanish from his sensors. Advanced Vorthak detection systems, designed to track fleeing refugee ships, suddenly couldn't maintain locks on the human vessels. "What sorcery is this?" he demanded. "Their hulls appear to be absorbing our scanner beams," Vexnell reported, his voice tinged with confusion. "And they're broadcasting false sensor echoes across multiple frequencies. Our targeting computers can't distinguish between real ships and phantom contacts." The Zilari had developed sensor-absorbing materials for scientific observation, designed to prevent their equipment from interfering with natural phenomena. Human military engineers had immediately recognized their potential for stealth technology. "Sir, we're detecting massive kinetic signatures," another officer reported. "Something is approaching at extreme velocity." The first rail gun volley struck the Vorthak formation like the hammer of an angry god. Tungsten rods, accelerated to 20% of light speed, punched through shields designed to deflect energy weapons. The Vorthak had never faced kinetic weapons of such velocity and mass. 3 Vorthak ships were crippled in the opening salvo, their hulls punctured by projectiles that carried more kinetic energy than their shields could absorb. But this was only the beginning of their education in human warfare. "Deploy the Trojan protocols," O'Connor ordered with cold satisfaction. The human fleet had scattered not just to avoid enemy fire, but to surround the Vorthak formation. Each ship began launching what appeared to be escape pods, vessels fleeing the battle as any sensible species would do. Grixthol's tactical instincts, honed by years of conquering fleeing populations, immediately focused on these escaping ships. "Destroy the fleeing vessels," he commanded. "Prevent any from carrying word of our approach to other systems." It was exactly what the humans had hoped he would do. As Vorthak ships turned to pursue the fleeing vessels, they exposed their flanks to the hidden human ships. More importantly, they broke formation for the first time in their military history. The escape pods suddenly reversed course and revealed their true nature. They were unmanned missiles, each one carrying a fusion warhead and guided by artificial intelligence that could adapt to enemy countermeasures. But even this was a deception within a deception. As the Vorthak point defense systems engaged the missiles, the real attack came from an entirely different direction. Human ships, using Zilari cloaking technology, emerged from hiding positions throughout the system. They had been lying in wait for hours, positioned not where the Vorthak expected them, but where human tactical doctrine dictated they would be most effective. All vessels, execute close-range assault pattern, Torres commanded. Show them what happens when you threaten innocence. The battle that followed shattered every assumption the Vorthak had about warfare. The humans didn't just fight. They fought dirty. They used false retreats to lure ships into kill zones. They sacrificed damaged vessels in ramming attacks that crippled multiple enemy ships. They targeted not just weapons and engines, but communication arrays and sensor grids, blinding and isolating individual ships from their fleet. Most shocking of all to the Vorthak mindset, the humans seemed to anticipate every tactical move. When Grix attempted to reform his battle line, human ships were already in position to exploit the gaps. When he tried to concentrate firepower on a single target, the humans would scatter and attack from multiple angles simultaneously. How do they know what we're going to do before we do it? Vexnal asked in desperate confusion as another Vorthak ship exploded under concentrated human fire. Grix was beginning to understand. These creatures didn't just fight. They studied war. They had analyzed Vorthak tactics from the intelligence provided by the Zilari and had prepared counters for every possible strategy. More than that, they seemed to possess an intuitive understanding of combat that went beyond simple tactics. "Sir, we've lost 14 ships," came the dreaded report. "Our formation is completely broken. The enemy is using weapons and tactics we've never encountered." For the first time in his career, Warlord Grix was facing an enemy that was better at warfare than he was. The realization was both humbling and terrifying. "All ships, retreat to hyperspace," he commanded, his pride warring with the survival instinct that had kept him alive through dozens of campaigns. But the humans weren't finished with their lesson. "Admiral, the Vorthak fleet is attempting to disengage," O'Connor reported. "Not yet, they're not," Torres replied coldly. "All ships, execute pursuit pattern Delta. Don't let a single one escape." The human fleet moved with coordination that bordered on telepathic. They had trained together for months, developing new tactical doctrines specifically for this moment. They moved like a school of predatory fish, each ship instinctively knowing where the others would be. As the surviving Vorthak ships attempted to flee, they discovered that the humans had anticipated this as well. Several human vessels had positioned themselves near the system's hyperspace jump points, waiting in ambush. The final phase of the battle was less a combat engagement than a demonstration. The humans systematically disabled the remaining Vorthak ships, using precision targeting to eliminate weapons and propulsion while leaving life support intact. When the silence finally fell, 18 Vorthak ships drifted powerless in space. 9 had been destroyed outright. Not a single human vessel had been lost, though several showed battle damage. Grix found himself aboard a crippled ship, surrounded by the wreckage of his once proud fleet. When the human admiral's face appeared on his damaged communication screen, he saw something in her eyes that chilled his reptilian blood. It wasn't just victory, it was a promise. "Warlord Grix, Torres said calmly, you will take a message back to your empire. Tell them that Earth is under our protection. Tell them that the Zilari are under our protection. Tell them that any species that preys on the innocent now has an enemy they cannot defeat." "This is impossible," Grix protested. "We are the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered 17 worlds. We cannot be defeated by primitives." "You've conquered 17 worlds of farmers and scientists," Torres corrected him. "You've never faced soldiers before. Consider this your education." She gestured, and the tactical display showed the full scope of the human victory. You came here with 27 ships. I'm letting you leave with 9, and only because I want you to deliver my message. If the Vorthak Empire ever approaches this system again, or any system under our protection, we will find you wherever you hide and end you permanently. As the crippled Vorthak fleet limped away from the Zilari system, word of the battle began to spread throughout the galaxy. For the first time in over a century, the Vorthak Empire had been not just defeated, but humiliated by a species they had considered primitives. Kethra stood in the observation chamber of her ship, watching the human fleet patrol the approaches to her homeworld. Her crystalline features reflected the light of the system's star as she contemplated what she had witnessed. "What have we awakened?" Velnez asked quietly, his own form flickering with uncertain colors. "I believe," Kethra replied slowly, "we have awakened the galaxy's new protectors. The Vorthak will spread word of this defeat, and other predator species will take notice. They will discover that there is now a species in the galaxy that fights not just for territory or resources, but for the principle that the strong should protect the weak." She turned to face her subordinate, her features glowing with something that might have been hope. For the first time in galactic history, there is a species that goes to war not for conquest, but for justice. In the depths of space, as the human fleet prepared to return to Earth, Admiral Torres stood on her bridge and looked out at the stars. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage, and they had done so as warriors, but they had also done so as protectors, and that distinction would define their role in the galaxy for generations to come. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the universe would never be the same.